by golly, it sure is convenient that your eyebrows don't grow out to become shoulder length. But can you imagine if they did? It never occurred to me until recently that that's super freaking weird, because how do these guys know to stay short, whereas this stuff would just keep growing longer your whole life if you let it? Misconception. Yeah, one of the first things that I learned while researching for this video is that there is no such thing as a hair that just keeps growing indefinitely. And I'll admit, I fully thought that's how this stuff worked. Learning more about why hair stops growing when it does, why it's different in different parts of the body, took me on a long journey of learning a lot more about hair growth cycles, hair anatomy, and some perspectives on hair through an evolutionary lens, which is kind of interesting. And I am going to do my very best to share all of that information with you across 2 videos while you remain distracted by looking for the goat picture that I forgot to bring with me to this godforsaken field! Regardless of where it's growing, the life of any individual hair is broken into phases called Anagen, Catagen, Telogen, and Exogen. And I want to talk about all of those, but I'm probably going to spend the most time on Anagen. Probably, like I don't know what's coming. Let's get surprised by my video together. I'll even throw a little reacting version of me over there. I'm just kidding. I actually hate videos like this. Anyway, Anagen is the growth phase, meaning it represents the only period of time during which the hair is actively getting longer. And so, to keep things really simple for right now, if you know how long Anagen lasts, and you know how quickly the hair is growing during that period of time, you can combine those 2 pieces of information through some extraordinarily complex mathematics known as multiplication, and end up figuring out how long that strand of hair is going to be once it finishes growing to its maximum length, which is also called the terminal length. And that all by itself can serve as a neat and tidy, short and sweet little answer to the question of why scalp hair can grow to be so much longer than eyebrow hair. It comes down almost entirely to the duration of the Anagen phase. So your body doesn't care at all how long the hair grows, it only cares how long it grows for. This moment of clarity is brought to you by Pondera. In the end, it pretty much winds up being the same thing regardless, but I find it's an important distinction to help contextualize how it works in different parts of the body. And so, let's compare Anagen between scalp and eyebrow hairs. Fight! Hair has a very long Anagen phase, way longer than it needs, in my opinion, but there are some interesting theories as to why it does what it does. We'll talk about that in part 2. The Anagen phase of scalp hair typically lasts somewhere between 2 and 8 years, which is an incredibly wide range, but what's really surprising to me is that there are people out there well beyond the 8 years, and we'll talk about that a little later. Eyebrows, on the other hand, or face, have an Anagen phase measured in months, typically less than 4, so it makes sense that eyebrow hair never gets as long as scalp hair does. Scalp hair tends to grow a bit quicker than eyebrow hair does as well, and I found the numbers on this a little bit hard to nail down, but the best I could do was 0.35 millimeters per day for scalp hair on average, and 0.14 millimeters per day on average for eyebrow hair. So, to just make an example, if we say that we're going to take scalp hair with an Anagen phase of 6 years and eyebrows with an Anagen phase of 75 days, which I think are pretty reasonable numbers, combine those with the typical growth rates and we'll end up with scalp hair reaching a terminal length of 77 centimeters and eyebrow hair reaching a terminal length of just over 1 centimeter. Again, those are perfectly normal in the range kind of lengths. Knowing all of that is a great start, but it's also kind of not really any useful information. I mean, think about it. Play it all back in your head. Different hairs grow to different lengths because they grow for different amounts of time. Okay, but what's up with the different stopping points? And we're right back where we started. But what we do know is that in order to learn more, we need to zoom in on what's happening right here, the end of Anagen flowing into the beginning of the Catagen phase, because whatever that is, whatever's happening right there, that's the thing that's happening differently at different timings, resulting in different lengths at different parts of the body. And so, all right, end of Anagen. But in order to talk about the end of Anagen, we kind of need to know what's happening during Anagen that has a stop put to it. So, okay, let's talk about what's going on during Anagen. But in order for any of the Anagen stuff to make sense, you kind of need to know some of the parts involved in that growth phase, so we need to talk about hair anatomy first. So we're a couple layers back from where we want to end up, but we're gonna get where we're going, I promise. Just take my hand, please, and come with me. So, hair anatomy, LOL. Hair Anatomy 101. You can basically just divide a strand of hair into two distinct parts, being the part that you can see and the part that hides from you, beneath the surface of the skin. The part that you can see is called the hair shaft, and to make it sound weird on purpose, the hair shaft is basically made up of the corpses of specialized cells that have been stretched out, gutted, and filled to the brim with protein, while hardening and being glued together. It's not a great description by any stretch, but it's not the focus of this video, so we're just gonna roll with it. The rest of the hair, which hides beneath the surface of the skin, is called the root, which lives inside the follicle. I used to think that the follicle was that little bulb-shaped thing at the end of a strand of hair, but no. The follicle is more like the skin cup holder into which the hair sits. That bulb-shaped part is actually called the bulb, which should make it pretty easy to remember, and inside the bulb is an area called the hair matrix, which wraps itself around this funny little thumb-shaped doodad called the dermal papilla, which features a tangled mess of itty-bitty blood vessels. But just try saying dermal papilla without smiling. You know, just try it. It's a fun name. There are a bunch more parts in and around the follicle that we could talk about, but won't, and that's final. Because I think that the parts that we've got so far are just enough to kind of wrap your head around what's going on during anagen. So let's talk about that. How do these different parts work together to do the growing thing? So at the base of the follicle, you've got old DP here who is feeding nutrients into the hair matrix, which is very important because the hair matrix is a region of rapid cell division. It's where the magic happens, really. The cells that live here that are dividing really rapidly are called keratinocytes, and it may not be pronounced that way, but they are called that. There's also a healthy collection of cells called melanocytes, which also may not be pronounced like that, but that's how I'm saying it. The ones that start with K specialize in making a protein called keratin. The ones that start with M specialize in making a protein called melanin. Melanin is the stuff that gives your hair its color, so it's just kind of like adding pigment into the hair as it's being developed. But the keratinocytes, and I'm committing to that pronunciation, make the majority of the population here, and they kind of quickly run out of room. This rapidly multiplying family of cells quickly outgrows its home inside of the bulb, and the cells are kind of funneled up through the root to become the hair shaft, producing disturbing amounts of keratin, and that is a really condensed version of explaining what is really happening during that anagen phase while the hair is still growing. So what is it that puts a stop to all of that? There's a lot going on at the end of anagen, but the main event seems to be that the dermal papilla becomes disconnected from the bulb, which cuts off the flow of nutrients into the hair matrix, causing the cell division in that area to grind to a halt. And then when there's no new stuff being made, there's nothing to form more hair shaft with, and voila, the growth comes to an end, and that particular strand of hair has gotten as long as it's going to get. That hair has now entered the Catagen phase, which is pretty brief, typically only lasts a couple weeks, and mostly consists of the bulb just shriveling up and dying. Then we're into Telogen, which is the hair's rest phase that typically lasts a couple months and mostly consists of the hair just sitting inside the follicle waiting to fall out. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of important work going on to reset the follicle to get it ready for a new growth cycle to begin. And once that starts, the new hair that starts growing in will push the old one out if it has... My cat is sneezing. You okay? Okay, she's fine. No? You get into some dust. So the new hair will push the old hair out if it hasn't fallen out already, so that that old hair can go on to do its most important work, clogging your shower drain. Where the hair is actually falling out is called exogen. One hair's anagen is another hair's exogen, am I right? That's such a stupid thing to say. And that new hair growing in, of course, is now in a brand new anagen phase, which is going to last until the dermal papilla becomes disconnected. Right there, hold it right there. That. What was the... Why did it... You know, like, why can't Pappy D just keep the good times rolling, you know what I mean? What is it, specifically, that causes the dermal papilla to just let the bulb die? And how does it know to wait different amounts of time depending on where the hair is growing on your body? It took me a while to find a satisfying answer to that question. Partly because I'm an idiot, but also because a lot of the resources that I was looking at initially said roughly the same unhelpful thing, which is that the anagen duration of each follicle is programmed genetically, which sounds lovely, but it's not any information. It does, however, hint at a very important truth about how hair grows in general, which is related to this whole thing, and that's that you can't mess with how the hair is going to grow. You can't make your hair grow twice as long as it was going to. You can't make it grow twice as fast. Maybe you've heard myths about trimming the ends of your hair to make it grow faster, or if you're having trouble growing a beard, shave the area anyway and the hair will start to grow in. None of that is true. That information is written into your DNA. Some world records can be broken as the result of practice, finding a new technique, or in other cases, unwavering patience. But others, like the world record held by Quiping, are actually impossible for almost anyone to break, no matter how hard they try. Sorry, the last 20 seconds or so have been my bad impression of a Veritasium video. I love that guy. Back in 2004, the fine folks at Guinness World Records measured Z's hair, and it came in at an astounding 5.627 meters, which is way longer than hair ever needs to be, and also way, way longer than you would ever expect it to grow, because think about this, even if we assume that her hair grew twice as fast as the average that we talked about earlier, that would still point at an anagen phase of 22 years, where for most people, that's somewhere between 2 and 8. Something in Z's DNA allowed her hair to grow that long, whereas for most people, this would be a completely unattainable goal, even if they vowed to never get a haircut ever again. A really weird thought is that there might actually be someone out there right now who is physically capable of breaking the record, but will never find out because they keep getting their dang haircut. I stuck my butt out a lot when I said that. Back to DNA. In trying to find an answer to the question of what specifically it is that allows one person's hair to grow really long compared to another, or what keeps eyebrows short compared to scalp hair, I felt like I was starting to lose my mind. I read through so many articles and different papers and stuff that I'm definitely not qualified to understand, but after a significant amount of perseverance going through that stuff, I learned that I was right. I was, in fact, losing my mind because I read the words Sonic Hedgehog, shh, in a scientific paper. And unfortunately for you, I think that that is the perfect place to end this video. In part 2, I'll be covering a lot more about what I learned on the subject of what it is in DNA that acts as a control on anagen timing, and it also kind of took me through learning about hair from an evolutionary perspective. How did it get to be the way it is? Once I have part 2 ready, I will link it somewhere on the screen. I hope that you watch it, and if you do, I really hope that you enjoy what's over there. But for now, thank you so very much for watching this video. Thank you so very much for watching this video. Thank you so very much for watching this video, and I hope you have